Joe Biden is French. That statement published online could go one of three ways: misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. I don't even know what these terms mean anymore, but turns out that this guy does. His name is Hossein Derakhshan. He's an Iranian journalist and academic who has a lot of resources. The one in question over here is the article we're going to be going through, called Disinfo Wars, a taxonomy of information warfare. Now let me give you an example. If Joe Biden, for example, was actually French, but decided to hide that for most of his career, completely away from the public eye, and then I accessed that data and released it, that would be called malinformation. Whereas misinformation is if Joe Biden, who actually has Irish heritage, has absolutely no connection to France, okay, and I'm just making a bit of a joke, and you interpret that seriously, go and spread it, and that becomes misinformation. However, disinformation is when I'm lying, I'm not joking, and you take that information seriously. By the way, for the record, Joe Biden is not French. What we see over here is a diagram created by Mr. Derakhshan to further illustrate examples of dis, mis, and malinformation in action. On the left side, we see the agent, the entity, or perhaps individual in the case of the public, creating the source of dis, mis, or malinformation. Versus over here, we have the target. Who is that information directed at? Pause the video now and look at these examples. Google them if you need to.
Here's Hossein Derakhshan explaining it in his own terms.
Non-government organizations are such important agents of disinformation if they are neglected. It's very common that bad state actors use non-state organizations to feed the public their false information. Because we know this, and because we've seen examples of how they've been manipulated by state organizations for these kinds of information operations, and the best example of that is the Iraq War, the way the American government tried to manipulate non-state organizations such as media organizations such as the New York Times. It fooled them, basically, it lied to them, it fed them with disinformation, and that disinformation impacted and affected the public in convincing them about the necessity of that war. Because we've seen these kinds of examples, we have to be much more careful about protecting non-state organizations, which includes media and also human rights and sometimes think tanks and policy organizations. They are the most effective, that's why they're the most vulnerable in many ways.